My name is Will Costello. I'm a master sommelier and I'm the export manager for the Miller Family Wine Company. Selling wine all over the world from one of California's most historic vineyards, being Nacido. And in my life, I am training for an Ironman triathlon at the end of 2023.
On the hacks, right? Red wine gives you more hangover than headache than a white wine.
You know, I would say that this is true only from the perspective that most red wines are going to have higher alcohol than white wines. Take, for example, something like Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand, probably 12.5% alcohol, and a Napa Valley Cab, probably 15.5%. If I have 3 glasses of both of them, I'm going to get more drunk, more dehydrated, more buzzed, and more potential to have a headache than a glass of white wine.
Chilling a red wine, is not a good idea.
I think it's the best thing you can possibly do. One of my rule of thumbs I always recommend to anybody is take your red wine and put it in your freezer for 20 minutes. It'll cool it down enough that it'll allow the wine to showcase the acidity and the brightness. But remember, it also warms up in your glass. So you're gonna get a better arc of all of the flavor than if you just started at room temperature. It ends at room temperature. Nothing changes, right? So chilling is actually great.
Food pairing myths. A red wine goes good with red meat, white wine with seafood.
I would say in general, this does make a lot of sense with some exceptions. And some of them are regional, right? There's a wine from southern Italy in the Marche, which is on sort of the backside of the Adriatic. It's a red wine called Lacrima di Moro d'Alba. It smells like violet flowers and jasmines and Fruit Loops, but it's dark purple the same way that Syrah and Cab are. But they serve that with fish stew classically in the Marche, and it works exceptionally well. So overall, I would say, yes, I'm probably not opening a bottle of Chardonnay when I have a ribeye off the grill, but there are some cases where an old dry Riesling can really go well with steak.
Wine particles in wine means it's gone bad.
Yeah, this one's funny because red wine gets particles no matter what. It just happens naturally as precipitating, but white wines, especially when you see those tartrates, all it means is that the winery decided not to cold stabilize. And what is cold stabilizing? It's bringing the wine temperature down to around 40 degrees. And at 40 degrees, the tartaric acid crystallizes and falls out. A lot of wineries choose to do this in their tanks or in their barrel room just to have it happen naturally. And if they choose not to do it, you can make that happen at home by keeping it in the fridge too long. Does not make it bad at all. Just don't eat them. They're probably going to taste like sour candy.
I'm sure not you guys, but when people like us, are trying to open a wine bottle and a cork just goes in, right? Or maybe half of the cork is broken. Usually people just throw the half of the glass to get it out, and half of the bottle is wasted. You'd prefer to just drink it and it's fine. Like if you just ate cork.
Totally. Yeah, you should. There's 2 things you should do. First, if you can and it broke in half, just take off the top and try to screw your cork back in, pull out the rest of the cork, and you'll be fine. Let's say it broke and you can't get a wine key in there. Take like a butter knife and shove it into the bottle. Now the cork's gonna float on top, but it won't come out because the cork will not fit into the neck of the bottle and pour out. So what's gonna happen? You're just gonna pour around it and you're gonna end up with a cork in the bottom of your empty bottle, and everything's gonna be great. And if we were together right now, I would show you a trick on how to get that bottle out. When I was a waiter back in, how
to still get that cork out, which is inside.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah, a guy bet me at a restaurant when I was a waiter, I bet you can't get this cork out of the bottle without breaking it. And I said, let me think about it for a little while. And his friend got up from the table and he came and found me because he wanted him to lose. And he said, okay, this is how you do it. You take the corner of a napkin and you put the napkin and feed it inside the bottle. And when it's inside the bottle, it'll create like a little pouch. Well, if you shake it and you get the cork to land right on it and you pull it out, by the friction of the napkin, it pops out the cork. And I won $50 off of this guy, and it's one of my favorite party tricks to do.
Amazing, loving it. Canned wines, are poor quality bottled wines.
Canned wine is interesting because you can put anything into a can, right? You can put a $2,000 bottle of Screaming Eagle into a can. But the beauty of wine making is that you make the wine with the end in mind. People who are making a wine that's going to have a screw cap on it are generally going to do something like rack the wine early on to get a lot of oxygen into it so that when it goes into a screw cap, the wine sort of closes down. It's what happens naturally. If you took something that was meant to be under cork, in this case, you put it in a can or under a screw cap, the wine is going to be in a state of what we call reduction, or sometimes it smells like rubber hose, or sometimes like burnt tires. And that's not good because you don't want a great world-class wine to taste like that. So there's nothing wrong with putting wine into a can, but the winemaker had to make the choice to put it in a can. And usually that's not going to be for wines you want to reserve for 30 or 40, 50 years. How
to create fizz in an already opened, sparkling bottle, which is like a day old or something, but you want to create it again,
You tell me. I've never heard of a way to do this. I mean, I guess if you have a soda stream, you probably could use it.
I thought there must be some hacks there.
Yeah, I've never heard of a way, because pretty much the way good sparkling wine is, like champagne, for example, when the bubbles are gone, because they were in suspension over time and they've dissipated, it's gone. You can't really make it sparkling again.
Hangover hacks. What are your what do you do at a party?
The 100% thing, and I have it here, not to say that I'm hungover, but drink a lot of water. Overnight, you generally are going to get dehydrated after drinking, even if you have 3 or 4 glasses of wine, which for some people is not a lot. But if you go to bed with a big glass of water, when you wake up in the middle of the night, drink half of it or drink the whole thing, and it'll help you feel better the next day. Most of what a hangover is being dehydrated, not anything else.
Tips for upselling, what 2 or 3 words or sentences you do to have them buy the second glass?
I would hearken back to the period of the meal. So let's say they're having dinner and they ordered a glass of red wine and they ordered a ragu bolognese and they already finished it with their salads. I would just say, that Chianti that you ordered is amazing with the ragu. Do you want me to get you another glass? So you reference why A, their food is coming, and B, the specific wine is going to go good with the specific dish. If you just say, hey, do you want another glass of wine? Sure, it can sell, but it's better to reference it to their experience. Now, let's say you want to upsell them. Then you would say, the Chianti Classico that you had for the salads is amazing, but I have this 1996 Barbaresco that chef chose to go with this ragu specifically, and we only brought in a case of it. Do you want a glass of that tonight with your entree? And that way you're kind of telling them, look, this isn't just another glass of wine. This is the glass of wine that if you're having it tonight with your ragu, try the 96 Barbaresco.
Nice, sold. How do I say no to that?
Well, if the price is $55, you might say no.
Yeah, that's the only thing, right? For example, let's say, you would want to pitch a $55 wine. I know we don't want to judge here, but are there any body cues that you pick before offering something? I
would generally want to say, again, a reference to if this is a special occasion. For example, if you were at my restaurant and you were from out of town, this is a special occasion for you, even if you're on business. So I say, I know there's a lot of you guys are from out of town. One of the things that we do that's special here is showcase our menu highlights with special glasses of wine. And tying it to a memory for you is always going to be a better idea than just asking or trying to sell. Even if somebody has a nice watch on, or if somebody has, a $200 shirt, they still might not want to spend on a $55 glass of wine. Whereas if you tie it to a memory of their time in Bozeman, Montana, or their time in Chicago at your restaurant, that's going to help them say yes more than just whether they have a nice watch on.
First time I'm doing this home tasting, Will, what are some tips you can give me? Which kind of 4 wines I should have, and what is the format, and what a piece of paper should have, like 3 or 4 things to have fun.
The number one home tasting that I like to do with consumers is this kind of thing. 4 glasses, right? 2 white, 2 red, old world and new world. That's the easiest one to do. And for example, if somebody doesn't understand what old world is, I can explain it really easily. Where did Christopher Columbus come from? That's the old world. Where did he go to? That's the new world. So they can go and have a, let's say they're doing reds. They could have something like a Spanish Rioja and a California Pinot Noir. They can just compare them, even though they're totally different wines. One of them is dark and intense and has roasted elements to it, and one of them is bright and fresh with the California Pinot. They will be able to taste that, not only from the old world and new world perspective, but be able to look at a glass and go, wow, this Pinot is really light. This Rioja is much darker. And if you do that with old world and new world as well, for the white wines, it's the easiest kind of tasting that somebody who is just trying to have a good time can put together.
And what kind of fun sheets or scoring or, just common sheets you would make? Like what are the 3 or 4 things you would, say, hey, this is the taste, this is the,
I would probably play a game where you see if you can get it right? And have a 5th bottle as the winner and say, we're going to play a game of pick old world and new world. And somebody who's the host is going to give a brief explanation. Old world wines come from Europe. They tend to be much drier. They're not very fruity. They're not alcoholic. They're not sweet. New world wines tend to be very in your face, boisterous. They can sometimes have a lot more oak to them and alcohol. So what I'm going to do is on your paper, I just want you to write OW for old world or NW for new world. And whoever gets the most right gets to take home this 5th bottle of wine.
Side hustles for sommeliers, right? What are the different kind of things that you've seen people can do to, generate some side income?
This one's interesting and takes a little bit more work, but I doubt you've heard of it. You can reach out to insurance companies who insure homes and wine cellars and be an on-the-ground asset for them. You can say, hey, I know that you have a lot of your customers have their wine cellars insured and they live in, for example, Las Vegas. There's a lot of people who have private wine cellars. Well, they'll call me and say, hey, we have somebody who put in a claim. Can you please go over, investigate the claim, see what the temperature is, see what the wines look like. Did any of them look like they oxidized? Did any of them look like the corks were pushing? Taste 1 or 2 of them to see if the wine has gone bad and give us a report whether this is a claim that is valid or not. And it's something that sommeliers should know because these are skills that we look at every day. When you receive a case of wine and it was too hot in the middle of summer and the corks are pushing out, you know that and can apply that to something like a...
This is the most unheard side income gig I've heard of. What else comes to mind?
One of the basic ones is a company like Scout and Cellar, right? They have in-home, I don't know what the terminology is, but like wine hosts. You could just go and set up a tasting at someone's house. They want to do it on Friday night. You bring all the samples with you, you do a full tasting for them, and then you can take orders, and each of those orders, Scout and Cellar pays their wine consultants a percentage of sales for the sales. You get to be a nice host towards a group of consumers who wants to learn and make a little bit of cash as well.